My name is Fatima. I was a devout student, molded by faith in the solemn halls of a madrasa in Cairo. For years, I excelled, memorizing verses, embracing rituals, convinced I was destined to serve a higher purpose. But beneath the surface of my unwavering devotion, a flicker of discontent simmered. I often felt the suffocating weight of expectation suffuse my spirit, chaining my thoughts under the guise of righteousness. What lay beyond those cloistered walls? What truth remained stitched in? Silence? One evening, as the sun surrendered to twilight, I sank to my knees in prayer. My heart ached beneath the weight of unasked questions while tradition loomed like a specter over my soul. It was then that an extraordinary vision unfolded, one that shattered my understanding of life and faith. As I knelt, enveloped by darkness, a radiant light pierced through, illuminating the shadows clinging to my heart. And in that holy brilliance stood Jesus, his eyes beckoning me to awaken. In that moment, the sacred institutions I had revered revealed themselves as mere puppets in an elaborate play of spiritual warfare, manipulated by unseen hands intent on sowing division and fear. I beheld the undercurrents of our world, a tapestry woven of deceit, politicians and leaders entangled in greed, entrapping the masses in chains of ignorance. "You seek the truth," he whispered, igniting a fire within me that would not be quelled. What I experienced transcended any notion of faith I had been tethered to. It was a divine call to unravel the layers of deception that enveloped my existence. Suddenly, my struggle was no longer a solitary battle. It was a clarion call to awaken my peers, to challenge the dogmas woven into the fabric of our lives. The urgency to free those caught in the grip of falsehood surged within me. Join me on this journey tonight, as I unveil the revelations that transformed my life. Together, we will confront the motives behind the veil, seeking a truth that holds the power to liberate not just us, but generations yet to come. But first, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Your voice matters, and together we will connect across the miles. If you sense the awakening within you, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. More revelations lie ahead, ones that have the potential to reshape everything you thought you knew. I was always that girl, the one who excelled at everything. Fatima, the model student in a strict, all-girls madrasa near Cairo. The air was thick with expectation and oppression. Every day, the stifling walls mirrored the rigid confines of our lives. Qur'an memorization was not just a task. It was a means of survival in a world that thrived on control. Even as the world whispered of freedom outside, we were veiled with discipline and fear. There was no comfort in questioning the doctrine, no space for grace, only an unrelenting pursuit of religious perfection. I often wondered about the stories I heard of other girls leaving the madrasa, those who sought something beyond the walls. I remained faithful, but deep down, a flicker of doubt began to grow. That doubt turned into something far more profound one evening, after a grueling day of memorization. As I knelt in prayer, drowning in the weight of expectation, I felt an overwhelming sense of light enveloping me. It wasn't just brightness, it was a presence, intense, overwhelming, and impossibly inviting. I thought it was just my tired mind playing tricks, but as I closed my eyes, everything changed. In an instant, I was drawn into a realm that defied understanding. I stood on the threshold of life and death, and I was terrified. Then, before me, stood Jesus. His eyes pierced through the veil of deception I'd always accepted. "You seek the truth," he said. And in that moment, I felt all the chains of my upbringing begin to shatter. He showed me visions, glimpses of a spiritual war raging beyond our comprehension. Witnessed leaders manipulating masses, sowing division for their own hidden agendas. It was terrifying to watch the orchestrations of the elite, their hands entwined in the fabric of society, fighting not for us, but for a power that crushed the spirit and twisted belief. I felt the urgency to awaken from this deep slumber that enveloped our world. Jesus spoke of the revelation that was not just for me, but for all who dared to look beyond the surface. Many are blinded, he said, by the comforts of their own certainty, too afraid to confront the truths I reveal. Time slipped away as he unveiled the layers of deception woven into our religious and political landscape. I felt a surge of emotions, fear, hope, anger, as he revealed how technology was serving as a tool for oppression rather than liberation. I saw glimpses of children crying for freedom, for an understanding beyond the rigid dogmas that confined them. I could feel the vibrations of a world on the brink, a reckoning between trust in authority and the need to seek a higher understanding. I realized that the quest I thought was about piety was actually about awakening. I felt compelled to share these revelations, to guide others to the light that was being kept from them. But as swiftly as the visions began, they retreated, dragging me back into my reality. A reality filled with fear and uncertainty. Jesus' presence lingered in my heart, igniting a flame of rebellion against the very oppression I had adhered to my entire life. With every prayer, I felt that flicker grow into a blaze. I was no longer just a girl at the madrasa. I was a seeker of truth, and I knew that the walls were no longer strong enough to hold me back. My journey towards awakening had begun, and I could almost hear the echoes of others yearning for the same discovery. Yet, as I slowly returned to the confines of my existence, the weight of what I had witnessed pressed down on me. I needed to act, to speak, to awaken those around me before it was too late. As I stepped out of the prayer room, a storm brewed within me, questions burning like embers. How could I awaken my friends, my family, when they were so entrenched in their beliefs? The battle I had witnessed was only beginning, and I felt compelled to fight, not just for myself, but for everyone captured in the web of deception. And as I glanced around the dimly lit hall, I knew this was just the beginning of an arduous quest for truth, echoing in the shadows. I was just an ordinary truck driver, navigating the endless highways filled with the hum of my engine and the promise of distant destinations. Life was simple. Early mornings, long stretches of asphalt, and the occasional convenience store stop for a cup of coffee and a moment to breathe. I'd spent years driving, chasing dreams veiled in the mundane, but everything changed one fateful afternoon when a sudden tire blowout sent my rig hurtling off the road, tumbling down an embankment. In those terrifying moments, as my world spun away from me, I felt an unexplainable stillness. The impact was blinding, and I could feel my consciousness slipping away. It was as though I had entered a void, swelling with darkness, yet also surrounded by a profound light. In that infinite moment, I found myself drawn into an expansive realm, one far beyond my understanding. There, amid an overwhelming peace, I encountered the figure of Jesus. He stood before me, radiating love and compassion, an ethereal presence that reached into the depths of my weary soul. He spoke to me, not with words, but with an all-encompassing understanding that transcended language. As I gazed into his eyes, the very foundations of my beliefs began to crumble. He unveiled truths hidden from us: manipulation, deception, spiritual warfare that stretched far beyond mortal conflicts. I was shown visions of a world in chaos, caught in the grip of fear and division. The elite, the powerful, conspired to keep humanity in a state of ignorance, driven by their insatiable greed and ambition. I saw leaders pitting one against the other, fueling wars that raged not only on distant battlefields, but also in our hearts, capturing the very essence of our humanity. With each revelation, I felt the urgency of his message. The technology we embrace, meant to connect us, was also a tool for control, designed to distract and manipulate. He revealed the subtle threads woven into the fabric of our lives: voting patterns, media, narratives, and societal divisions. all intricately crafted to maintain power. I could see how fear had seeped into our existence, suffocating the spirit of truth and united awakening. It was a wake-up call, an invitation to look beyond the surface, to confront the hidden agendas that dictated our reality. I realized this was not just a personal journey, but a call to awaken the slumbering masses. I was taken to places where pain and suffering prevailed. Homes torn apart, families divided, communities lost in despair. Jesus urged me to understand that each individual struggle reflected a larger tapestry, a collective human experience. He showed me that as long as we succumb to fear and division, we remain trapped in a cycle of conflict. But there was hope. He emphasized that the power of love and unity could break those chains. My heart swelled with the weight of responsibility, a fierce determination igniting within me to share these revelations with others. I felt as if I had been handed a divine blueprint for awakening, one that urged me to become a warrior for truth amid the spiritual war unfolding around us. Just as quickly as the visions came, I felt my spirit being pulled back. The light flickered, the profound connection with Jesus faded, and I was jolted back into my broken body lying in the wreckage of my truck. A rush of panic surged through me as I realized I had narrowly escaped death. But something inside me was irrevocably transformed. Questions flooded my mind. How would I convey the truth I'd experienced? How could I combat the hidden agendas poised against us? I had been gifted a revelation, one that pierced through my veils of ignorance. Yet the journey ahead felt daunting. The urgency to rise against the deception gripped me, leaving me fumbling for understanding as I began to navigate this new reality. One where each truth unearthed propelled me further toward a destiny I was only beginning to comprehend. My name is Ahmad, and for most of my life, I was just a regular guy, an engineer living in a small town, balancing work, family, and the daily grind. I woke up each morning to the mundane reality of deadlines, project meetings, and the comforting routine of my married life. My world revolved around my wife and kids, and though I believed I was doing well, there was an unsettling feeling inside me. I often brushed it aside, convincing myself that life was just busy, that I was simply caught in the whirlwind of obligations. But deep down, something felt incomplete. The ticking clock of life always seemed relentless. It wasn't until that fateful evening, after a long day at work, that everything I thought I knew collapsed. As I drove home, an unbearable fatigue overtook me. My vision blurred, and before I knew it, I lost control of my car, crashing into a guardrail at high speed. The world fell silent, transformed into a murky haze. For a moment, I felt detached from my body, suspended in a dark, surreal space. It was terrifying, yet curiously peaceful. I began to drift away from the physical pain. A strange calm swept over me. And then, without warning, I was thrust into a blinding light that expanded before my eyes, inviting me into a realm beyond my understanding. I experienced what they call a near-death experience, my consciousness soaring beyond the limits of my earthly existence. In that divine radiance, I found myself standing face to face with Jesus. I felt his presence envelop me, a warmth that cut through my icy fear of the unknown. Ahmad. He called my name with a voice that resonated with compassion and authority, a sound that echoed through the very essence of my being. I trembled, confused, for I had been raised in a culture that revered only one God. Yet here was Jesus, standing before me as the embodiment of love and truth. "This world is entwined in deception," he spoke, his words piercing through the layers of my doubt. "The spiritual war is raging within you and around you, and you must awaken to the truths hidden behind the facade of society." As his revelations unfolded like pages of an ancient book, I felt a torrent of emotions shifting within my heart. He spoke of an elite class of leaders whose hidden agenda manipulates the masses, drawing strings that lead us into conflict and division. Wars are fought not merely on battlefields, but in the hearts and minds of people, he revealed. Your technology, which you embrace for connectivity, is often wielded as a weapon to distract and control. Each revelation stunned me, thrusting me into a kaleidoscope of realization. I saw glimpses of a future plagued by disconnect, a world where fear and misinformation blind us from our true purpose. I couldn't help but feel an urgency rising within me, a call to action against the forces that sought to confine us. As I absorbed his teachings, I was given visions of the socio-political landscape, a shocking portrayal of our leaders acting as puppets, their strings, anchored by those who thrive on chaos and ignorance. You live in a time of awakening, Jesus told me, a pivotal moment where many are trapped in dogmas that cloud their understanding. I'm showing you these truths so that you can share them, so that others can awaken from their slumber. It felt overwhelming, an immense responsibility resting heavily on my shoulders. I could resist, retreat back to my old life, or I could embrace this divine calling, stepping into the unknown. The fire ignited. Within me urged me to fight against the deception that permeated everyday life. Just as I began to truly absorb the magnitude of his message, a sudden fizz and crackle assaulted my senses, sucking me back into the harsh light of reality. I awoke in a hospital bed, tubes and wires tethering me to life, gasping for breath. The moment was jarring. The divine light I had felt fading like a dream, yet the revelation lingered, pressing against my heart, urging me to act. I reached for my phone, shaking, desperate to share what had been awakened within me, a truth that felt both electrifying and perilous. What would people think? Would they understand? My grip tightened around that thought. As fear and purpose collided, I stood at the crossroads of my life, heart racing, with a call to awaken not just my own spirit, but those of countless others lost in the shadows. My journey had only just begun. Growing up, I was just an ordinary guy, someone who lived a simple life as a mechanic in a small town. My days were filled with the familiar sounds of wrenches clanging and engines humming. I strived to support my family, fix cars, and enjoy the little things. But deep down, I always felt a sense of longing, as if something important was out of reach. This mundane existence changed unexpectedly one fateful evening. It was a regular day. Work ended late, and I was driving home, lost in thought. Suddenly, a truck collided with me, and everything faded to black. I remember feeling a vast emptiness and then a pull, a light wrapping around me. I was no longer in my body. I was somewhere else entirely, floating in an expanse filled with brilliance. In that state, I felt no pain, no fear, only peace. Then I saw him, Jesus, face to face, his presence enveloping me. "I came to show you the truth," he said. His voice was gentle but powerful, striking a chord deep within my soul. In that moment, my life unfolded before me, revealing everything I had taken for granted. I witnessed this threads of society entwined in a pattern of deception and manipulation, orchestrated by an elite few. Their hidden agenda was nothing less than a spiritual war aimed at our souls, stemming from greed and the insatiable hunger for power. It struck me with such intensity, a revelation so profound, that it ignited something within me I didn't know existed. As the vision expanded, I saw leaders rallying their followers, but not in unity. Rather, they were breeding division. Wars torn apart by motives, veiled in righteousness, but rooted in selfish gains. I watched as technology, a tool meant to connect us, disintegrated our essence, robbing us of genuine interaction. I saw masses entranced by screens, unaware of how they were being manipulated, content beneath a layer of deception that had become the norm. Jesus held my gaze, compelling me to understand that these were not mere coincidences. They were orchestrated distractions, keeping our eyes off the spiritual battle raging around us. With every heartbeat, the urgency of his revelations deepened. I felt the weight of the world rest on my shoulders. "Your awakening is critical," he insisted. "The truth is your armor in this war." My mind raced with questions, desperate to grasp the full scope of what I had witnessed. How could I articulate these truths? How could I possibly challenge the dogmas I had been taught, the beliefs that had been the foundation of my life? The gravity of my experience pressed down on me, igniting a fire that demanded to be shared, an insatiable quest for understanding that was just beginning. The encounter faded, and I was pulled back into my body, gasping for breath, feeling disoriented. I was alive, but forever changed. Confusion enveloped me as I adjusted to reality, yet a profound clarity remained. The illumination of that near-death experience had opened my eyes to a world filled with questions that had to be confronted head-on. The spiritual war wasn't just a concept. It was my reality now, a call to arms to awaken others from their slumber. The journey ahead loomed vast, uncertain, but vital. What would I do next? How could I navigate this newfound conviction amidst a society so deeply entrenched in the darkness? The answers were yet to come, urging me forward into the unknown. I was a factory worker, living a life that seemed both ordinary and predictable. I clocked in and out each day, my mind often drifting to thoughts of my family, my children. But one fateful afternoon, everything changed. A machine malfunction led to a catastrophic accident that left me lifeless on the shop floor, or so I thought. As I hovered in that suspended state between life and death, I found myself enveloped in unexplainable light, warmth embracing me from every side. In that moment, I encountered Jesus. His presence was overwhelming, radiating a love so profound it cut through the layers of sorrow and despair I had accumulated over the years. I felt as though he saw straight through my soul, revealing the secrets I had kept even from myself. In this divine encounter, I was gripped by revelations that spiraled through my mind like lightning. Jesus spoke not in words, but in emotions, visions, and deep, resonating truths. I saw images of wars spanning the globe, countries torn apart by conflicts fueled by old grudges and greed. What shook me to the core was the realization that these wars were part of a spiritual war, one fought not only on battlegrounds but in the very hearts of humanity. The elite, those who wield power from the shadows, were manipulating innocent lives, pushing us towards division while claiming to provide salvation through promises of security. I could hear his voice, urging me to awaken and see the threads that connected these events to a greater design of deception. The visions morphed, revealing a world entrapped by technology, a society obsessed with devices that isolate them from one another. I saw leaders promising change while clutching tight to their own agendas, their smiles hiding veiled corruption. The manipulation of truth became painfully clear. The rage I felt, the urgency washing over me, was because I realized that every inch of social division was an orchestrated strategy to keep us blind to the truth. I was given a glimpse of the future, a future where hope could thrive if only we chose to unify against the forces that sought to tear us apart. I felt empowered, but also terrified of the profound responsibility that came with this knowledge. As I slipped closer to the edge of consciousness, I was filled with messages of hope. Jesus showed me that every human being, regardless of race, background, or belief, held within them a truth waiting to be revealed. If only we could shift our focus from conflict to compassion, from material gain to spiritual growth. I felt the weight of my responsibility to awaken others, to share this revelation to combat the deception that surrounded us like a thick fog. My spirit cried out for help to share this message, to be a voice in a world increasingly drowned out by noise and lies. But just as I began to grasp the significance of my awakening, I felt a pull, a force that urged me back to my lifeless body. I longed to remain in that sacred space, bathed in the light of truth and revelation. The sensation of being dragged back was disorienting, like being pulled away from a warm embrace. As I opened my eyes in the hospital, the harsh fluorescent lights felt jarring compared to the glow of divine warmth. I could still feel the echo of the truths I had learned coursing through my veins, urging me to rise against the tide of ignorance and oppression that threatened our world. I knew I was changed forever. The mundane comfort of my previous life was now shattered. I had to share what I had seen, what I had learned. But as I grappled to articulate the extraordinary nature of my experience, I couldn't shake the feeling of fear that lurked just beneath the surface. Would anyone believe me? Or would they dismiss me as mad, a product of a near-death experience steeped in illusion? I could see the spiritual war coming to a head, the battle raging not simply in the heavens but right here on earth. The weight of that truth sat heavy on my heart, urging me into action. The awakening had begun, but I knew it required far more than me alone. More revelations awaited, and the world hung in the balance. I remember the day it all changed. It was a Tuesday afternoon, like any other. I was on my way home from the job I had worked for over a decade, just a blue-collar worker trying to make ends meet. My hands were calloused from years of labor, yet my heart was restless, longing for something more. As I drove, a nagging thought echoed in my mind. Was this all there was to life? Just the mundane cycle of work, eat, sleep? Suddenly, in a split second, the world around me dissolved. I didn't see it coming. A truck ran a red light, and everything went dark. In that void, I felt weightless, as if I had floated away from my body. Then, amid the silence, I encountered a light so brilliant it pierced through the darkness, washing over me. And there, standing amidst that light, was Jesus. He was unlike any image I had ever known, glowing and radiant. His presence wrapped me in warmth. In that divine moment, I was shown truths about the spiritual war we are all entrenched in, the grand deception orchestrated by those who wish to control us. I was transported through moments of history and visions of the present, a tapestry revealing the hidden agenda of the elite, their machinations woven within the fabric of our reality. I saw powerful leaders, not as benevolent guides, but as puppets dancing to the strings of greed and ambition. As Jesus began to speak, his words resonated deeply within me. "You've been blinded by the world," he said, "but I am the truth, the light that shatters the darkness." I felt the urgency of his message washing over me like waves, stirring within me a profound understanding of the conflicts that rage around us. Images flashed, wars ignited by lies, divisions fueled by hatred, technology hijacking our very consciousness under the guise of progress. It became clear that the battles we see are but a reflection of the turmoil raging in the unseen spiritual realm. The realization struck me with force. I was part of this conflict, whether I wished to be or not. It was my obligation to awaken, to understand that complacence was a choice. In those suspended moments, I was shown the plight of many, families torn apart by ideologies, young minds corrupted by materialism, and souls trapped in cycles of despair. I felt my heart breaking for those who, like me, were chasing an elusive notion of happiness in a world so intent on pushing its hidden agenda. As I floated, witnessing the chaos, I was gripped by an overwhelming desire to fight back against the deception. How could I sit idly by while so many suffered? How could I remain silent about the awakening that was so desperately needed? Just as I thought I would drown in the weight of despair, a wave of clarity surged through me. "You are not alone," Jesus reminded me. "I have called you to be a herald of truth." His assurance revived a flicker of hope within my spirit. It dawned on me that my existence had a greater purpose. I was meant to awaken those still lost in the fog of ignorance. With that realization came the knowledge of my mission: to rescue those ensnared in the darkness of deception, to pull them into the light of truth, as he had pulled me. But I also felt the weight of responsibility for the choices that lay ahead. There would be resistance, there would be conflict, and I would need to prepare myself for the journey filled with challenges yet to come. And then, just as quickly as it began, the light around me began to dim. The ebbing brilliance was a sharp contrast to the profound warmth I had felt I sensed my consciousness slowly being pulled back to the physical realm, yet the revelations lingered like an echo in my mind. With each heartbeat, I was being led back to a life that felt impossibly trivial, but I emerged with a deep urgency to act, bursting with stories meant to be shared, revelations that could awaken others. The truths I had seen would ignite a passion to push against the tide of deception. As I opened my eyes in the hospital bed, the stark reality of my surroundings felt foreign, and I knew this was only the beginning of my journey, a call to arms in an ongoing spiritual war where the stakes couldn't be higher. I remember the ordinary days, each blending into the next like the colors of the sunset fading into darkness. I was just a factory worker, a soul navigating the mundane, driven by the need to provide for my family. Each morning, I'd rise early and step into the relentless rhythm of production, the whir of machines drowning out my inner voice. I took pride in my work, but as the years passed, something felt amiss. Echoes of discontent began to rustle through my mind, wondering if this was all life had to offer. It was the same questions that tormented so many of us, trapped in the cycles of routine, longing for something beyond the tangible, a deeper connection, a purpose that eluded us in the daily grind. One fateful afternoon, as I hurried to finish a shipment, a sudden jolt sent me sprawling. My body fell hard against the concrete, and the world shimmered like a mirage. That moment, when pain morphed into darkness, was unnervingly surreal. I wasn't frightened. Instead, I felt elevated, as if floating above my own body. Paradoxically, I was free. In the void, I encountered a presence that transcended human comprehension. Jesus. He stood before me, radiating a light so profound that it shattered the illusions I had clung to. I felt bare. No secrets, no facades. In his gaze, I saw the weight of deception, the hidden, agendas orchestrated by the elite who manipulated the masses. It was a revelation, a moment of pure understanding of the battles raging in the unseen world. He spoke of a spiritual war, one that extended beyond ideologies and manifested in tangible suffering across the globe. As he revealed the layers of deception woven into the fabric of society, I felt each revelation grip my heart. The strife between nations, the engineered divisions that fostered hatred and distrust. It all coalesced into this alarming truth. We, the people, were being drawn into an abyss fueled by fear and ignorance. It was as if I was viewing a grand chessboard, each piece moved deftly by unseen hands, aimed at keeping humanity shackled while the elite prospered. The wars fought were not just ones of guns and bombs, but of thoughts and beliefs, a manipulation of the spiritual that bled into our realities. I saw faces of leaders, their smiles masking intentions tainted with greed and control. Technology, I learned, was a double-edged sword. While it could bring us closer, it was also an instrument used by those who sought to divide us further. I witnessed men and women succumbing to their devices, becoming prisoners of their own choices. The weight of their decisions pressed down on me, and I could feel the urgency to awaken not just myself, but those still wandering through their scripted lives. A pulse of energy surged through me, a calling to salvage the lost, to guide them toward the light of truth that I had been so generously shown. Before I could fully grasp it all, I was pulled back, violently crashing into reality. The sounds of the factory flooded back, but I was changed. As I lay there, dazed and gasping, I realized I had been given a mission. The time I spent in that heavenly realm unveiled more than just truths about the present. I felt an impending dread. The future of humanity hung in the balance, teetering on the brink of chaos. Each moment spent in denial, every second lived under the shadows of falsehood, contributed to a collective downfall. I understood that I must be the voice to ignite a fire in others, to spur them into action before the clock struck its final hour. I was reborn, no longer complacent in my existence. My spirit burned with passion, and yet a looming question lingered. What would I do with this new identity bestowed upon me? A current of worry surged as I realized the gravity of my calling. With each heartbeat, I felt the weight of countless souls depend on my courage. In the days that followed, a fire fueled my pen as I began to document my experience, exposing the hidden realities that Jesus had revealed to me. Letters flew from my hands, words spilling onto the pages like water rushing from a dam. I crafted messages meant to rattle the foundations of complacency, intending to shake awake those still lost in the mire of deception. But would they listen? Would my voice resonate with others ensnared in the same fabric of lies that once enveloped me? Each letter became a prayer, a desperate hope for change, a fight against the divine sleep that had cradled humanity for too long. As days turned into weeks, I felt the urgency swelling within me, yet the world remained largely indifferent. I could sense the shifting winds, a storm brewing on the horizon marked by division, turmoil, and unrest. With every click of my keyboard, I wove a narrative that transcended personal testimony. It morphed into a clarion call for awakening. My fears surfaced, gnawing at my resolve. Would it be enough? Would anyone heed the call to arms in this spiritual war? Each night, as I lay awake, I was haunted by the vision I had witnessed, the faces of those still shackled by their beliefs, the innocent victims of wars ignited by hidden agendas. I couldn't shake the responsibility I felt. This was a task handed down from the light I encountered. I wasn't merely a person with a near-death experience. I was a vessel, entrusted with a mission. And so, I prepared for the journey ahead, wondering where it might lead, who I might meet, and what revelations awaited as I plunged deeper into the light. As I reflect on this profound journey, I find myself standing at the precipice of a revelation that defies explanation. The light I encountered, which shattered my illusions and exposed the intricacies of a hidden war, beckons not just to me, but to all of us. It raises a profound question for you, dear viewer. Have you felt the stirrings of truth within your own heart? Are you aware of the unseen forces at play in our world, the relentless battle for our souls and our beliefs? We are all part of this intricate tapestry of existence, woven together by fear, hope, and the desire for understanding. My experience shows that the awakening is not an isolated event. It's a collective call to rise from the shadows. We are challenged to see beyond the surface and confront the layers of deception that confine us. So I ask, you, what will you do with this awakening? Will you choose to uncover the truth that lies beneath the facade of our reality? Or will you remain ensnared in the comfort of ignorance? Together, let us spark conversations that matter, share experiences that inspire, and explore the depths of our collective spiritual journey. If this message resonates with you, don't miss the chance to dive deeper into these revelations. Subscribe to Truth from Beyond and activate the notification bell, because what unfolds next will guide you towards even greater understanding. Together, we'll unravel the complexities of our world with every video we share, lighting the path for those still lost in darkness. And as we stand on the brink of a monumental awakening, I invite you to engage with this community. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your voice is essential in this collective movement toward truth. Each interaction is a ripple in the fabric of reality, bringing us closer to clarity amid confusion. Thank you for joining me in this exploration. I'm Fatima, and I urge you to remember, the truth is calling. It waits for those courageous enough to seek it, and it's never too late to step out of the shadows. As we press forward, together, may our hearts and minds be illuminated.